just think it's so important to be able to look at your own journey and not compare it to others, to realize that maybe this is how it's supposed to be, and that's okay. As long as you're still going, that's all that matters. Like, you'll get there eventually.
That's Alice Reed. I'm Cara Duffy, and this is the Powerful Ladies Podcast. Welcome to the Powerful Ladies Podcast.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Let's tell everyone your name, where you currently are in the world, and what you're up to.
My name is Alice Reed. I live in Bend, Oregon at the moment, and I'm just finishing up my commercial pilot's license, as well as working on my own little small business, creating jewelry, sewing hats, it's a little bit of everything.
You were recommended to us by Shay Laplace, who's been on the Powerful Ladies team for a long time. Took a break. She's come back right now for some consulting. She's one of my favorite humans. I just adore her.
She's incredible. I love her.
Love her. And then we also recently had Brianna Madia on, who's another one of my favorite people, who, when Shay shared your social pages, it was just like everything you posted, Bri was losing her mind on, which I really appreciated.
Bri is one of my best friends. It's awesome. Like, we just kind of lift each other up, which is great.
How did you and Bri meet?
I actually met her when I took her and Willie flying. And it was her first time up in like a small plane. And it was just around the mountains here in Bend. And we just kind of hit it off, and we were just kind of like goofing around. And then after that, we just started hanging out and just hit it off. Yeah.
Yeah. I like when that just happens. It's just easy. Why wouldn't it work? Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's just like so easy to be around each other, and it just flows.
So there aren't a lot of women who are becoming pilots. And how did you end up deciding that you wanted to be one? And like, did you fall in love with flying first? Was it about getting yourself places?
So it kind of came to me a little bit later than most people who are getting into it now. My father is a pilot. He has 5 months left with American Airlines until he retires.
Wow.
So I grew up just kind of like around aviation in general. My parents actually met because my mom, when she was 18, she was taking flying lessons, and my dad was her flight instructor. And basically, like, the rest is history. I mean, they're still married, they're still in love. And so, yeah, just kind of like growing up with that, I don't know, it just like being able to travel with my family and living in that kind of lifestyle, it was like a little bit different. But after college, I took some time to travel and just kind of explore. And when I got back, it just really sparked my interest because it felt like it was filling that same kind of feeling of like traveling, and just like it was exciting and it was fun to be able to go different places, and obviously just like learning something new is so fun and exciting. And that's kind of when I realized, like, okay, I think I want to do this. Like, this feels like me. And yeah, so that's kind of how I got into it, and it's been a journey ever since. I mean, I have my private license, my instrument rating. This past summer, I drove up to Alaska in my van with just my dog and I got my float rating to fly seaplanes, and it's a blast. And there's so many different like directions you can go with it. And yeah.
With your dad being a pilot, did you ever go through a phase of being nervous to fly?
Not really, no. Like, I've never felt nervous to fly. I mean, it's been, as you're going through training, you kind of work your way up to flying into like inclement weather or flying in the clouds or flying with like stronger winds. and you just kind of like build your confidence along the way.
Hmm.
So, yeah. And it's kind of funny because asking that question, both my dad and I in our family are very afraid of heights. Like, don't love heights, but for some reason, being in the plane, like,
Hmm.
it doesn't register. I don't know. I can look down at the ground and I don't feel scared. I think it's because I'm in control. I
Yeah.
don't know what it is, but it's just kind of funny.
Because I've always wondered, because I've I have definitely logged more flight miles as a traveler than most humans have. And I've always had an underlying like flight anxiety. But I've always wondered, like, is the anxiety because I'm not in control? And is the anxiety because I'm stuck in a plane with a bunch of people I don't know and probably don't trust? Like, how would it shift if I was the one flying the plane? Because when I let all that go and I get the chance to like look out a window, like it's just stunning the fact that we get to be floating up above this beautiful planet and what we can see. And then I also love like adventure is such a value of mine, and just getting to like, in a few hours you can be anywhere you want in the world. And
Yeah.
it's just crazy. And so like there's something that there's this I have a real push and pull about what traveling by plane means for me. And usually I just stuff it down and like just go like deal with it. But there must be, I'm a little envious, I think, of your perspective of the control and the freedom that you get to combine.
Yeah. No, it's truly incredible. And I mean, I still have moments where, like, even while I'm flying, just being like, wow, this is crazy. Like, I am flying. And the fact that we have come up with a way to fly and, like you said, be somewhere within like a couple of hours. I mean, it's truly incredible.
You also mentioned that you traveled a lot. And so when Shay recommended you for this podcast, she's like pilot, nomad, maker of things, awesome. Like she just listed all these words. So
Oh,
I want to
she's the
hear
best.
about you as a nomad, and where does your love for travel and adventure come from?
It definitely comes from growing up in a family where we got to travel like free on standby with my dad's
Mhm.
benefits. And when I was 23, I believe, I had the free flying benefits standby until I turned 24. And that's when I was really like, okay, I need to take advantage of this. I'm going to save up, work my butt off, and go on like a solo adventure around the world. And I took 8 months to go to Southeast Asia, Australia, Japan, just a little bit of all over. And it was truly one of the best times of my life. Like I cannot, and even to this day, I mean, traveling up to Alaska by myself, like I just feel like solo travel is so important and I cannot recommend it enough. Especially as a female, I think it's really empowering and I think you just like learn so much about yourself. And yeah, I mean, my mom always, I think she a little bit regrets it now, but she was always encouraging my brother and I to like get after it. You can do anything you put your mind to. Like the world is your oyster and just we grew up with that kind of mindset. And so then when we were older, we're like, okay, like let's do it. And yeah, I mean my mom I think it just like worries a little bit now about that, but yeah, it's I think it's great and I really just like can't recommend solo travel enough.
So I have two immediate follow-up questions. One is, how do you like mentally prepare for the standby process? Because you show up and like you might get on a flight, you might not, you have to wait forever. Like you just kind of accept it and show up, like, or how do you keep yourself entertained?
Yeah, I mean, there were definitely times where you would have to show up in the morning and your flight wasn't until the evening time, and you don't even know if you're going to get on. And during that time, I would always like, it's just so anxious. You're so
Yeah.
anxious because you're like looking at the standby list and you're like, okay, how many open seats are there? How many standbys are there? What number am I on the list? And like, it can change at any moment. Like, a flight cancels and you're like, oh, I might not be able to go for a few days.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, at the time when I was 23, it was fine. I
Mhm.
didn't care. Like, I would sleep on an airport floor. But yeah, now I definitely don't mind buying tickets
Mhm.
just to know that I'm going to get there. So, yeah.
I think that every woman I know who has traveled by herself said like raves about it, says you have to do it. It's the best thing. I think so many women and so many people listening get nervous about where is it okay to travel as a woman? Where is it safe or not safe? And even for myself, like I consider myself a pretty well-traveled person, and there are some countries that I haven't gone to yet because I don't know if going to them as a solo female would make sense. So, how did you kind of navigate the worries and feeling safe? Like, did you have a game plan going into it? Did you just show up and kind of trust yourself? How did you be smart about it, but also allow yourself the freedom to take all those stereotypes aside and experience the place?
Yeah. Uh, so I started my trip in, I flew to Australia and I was only there for like 2 days. And then from there I went up to Bali. And I had heard that Bali was a really good place for just solo travelers, and there's a lot of young people. And I had heard that like a lot of female travelers go there solo and to stay in hostels. And, like there's an app where you can see the reviews of hostels. And so I kind of dug into that. And when I had started planning it, I really wanted to keep my plan open. Like I just kind of see where I want to go next and how long I want to be there for is just kind of up in the air. And that worked out so well. I think that's the way to do it is keep an open plan because I went to Bali and I met these two ladies that are still really good friends of mine. One lives in Europe and the other one actually lives in Salt Lake City. And we just hit it off and we ended up traveling together a little bit. I unexpectedly went to Nepal a week later with them. My friend Lark, after hanging out for like 4 days, she invited me to go to Nepal with her and hike to Everest Base Camp. And like, obviously, like I could not say no to that. And it was kind of funny because I was not expecting to go anywhere cold during my travels. Like I had packed all warm clothes. It was December, but over there it's warm. And so I had nothing. So I actually ended up buying a lot of the gear in Kathmandu. Um, and yeah, I mean, it was so unexpected, but that's what I love about traveling, especially solo, is you meet so many other people from different places and you get to learn from them and you get to travel with them. And it's something that I will never forget.
For people who don't own a passport, like I just don't, my brain doesn't work when I hear that that comes up. And I know that there's a whole thing of passport privilege and all that, fine. And like not leave your home city or your home state or your home country. There's so much magic that we're missing out on getting to see. Like some of my favorite days were traveling.
Yeah. And just seeing like what the rest of the world is like and seeing
Mm-hmm.
how other people live and seeing just like the culture. I mean, there's
Yeah.
some places like in Vietnam where you could just sit outside at a cafe and people watch all day. And it's just so
Yeah.
interesting.
When you think about where you want to go next, what's high on your list?
So when I was over there, my friend Lark, who I went to base camp with, she was telling me about her trip in India. And I don't know why, like I have never been drawn to India, but for some reason after going to Nepal, I was like, I want to just see India. Like it just feels so far away and like so different from anything I've ever experienced. Just like hearing her talk about it. So I think I want to check out India. I mean, I want to go to Antarctica. Like, there's so many places, honestly. It's hard to choose.
No, I agree. It's like it's almost easier to say like where I don't want to go because it's like two places.
Right, right.
I want to come back to you and being a pilot. Have there been things that have surprised you that were stereotypical, or like have people been weird about you being a pilot and being female that's shown up in that process?
Um, yes, definitely. I think, I feel like a lot of women have dealt with this and are currently dealing with this of just being a female pilot and having to almost overcompensate
Mhm.
to prove yourself that like you do know what you're doing. You are worthy. Like you are supposed to be here. Um, like I've had comments about how like I look so young and I've had a male come over and ask me if I need help pre-flighting and it's like I know what I'm doing. Like, um yeah, I mean there's definitely been some struggles in that realm and just feeling like I have to really overcompensate so that I'm not just looked at as a small, young, blonde female pilot.
Hmm. Does it
Yeah.
happen all the time?
No, definitely
Okay.
not. Like I have definitely had a lot of people who are so supportive
Hmm.
and stoked for me and just like think it's great that there's more females that are getting into aviation and that is incredible. It's so supportive
Hmm.
and it's so nice to hear and it's so nice to learn from those people.
Yeah.
Yeah, so definitely not all the time, but there are definitely instances that where you're just like, ugh, like come on. Like
Yeah.
I know what I'm doing.
When you look at what being a pilot has given you access to, what are you going to use it for to get to next, do you think?
Um, I'm kind of in a transitional period right now. I actually just had my commercial check ride on Wednesday, and it's a two-part test. So you go in and you do the oral part, which is sitting down with a DPE, designated pilot examiner, that's like sent by the FAA, and he basically asks you questions, and you have to answer them or find out where to get the answers for them. And I passed that, which felt really good.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And we didn't get to do the flying part because the weather was bad, so I'm waiting for that part. But recently, that's been on my mind of like, where do I want to go next with this?
Hmm.
A lot of people end up going the CFI route, so teaching others how to fly. And it's harder to get entry level jobs um, with like the low hours that I have now, but it's not impossible.
Hmm.
So I've been kind of thinking about maybe doing the CFI route and applying for other jobs in the meantime and just kind of like seeing if I can get other gigs. I did when I was up in Alaska, the chief pilot wanted me to come back with my CFI and teach people how to fly seaplanes, which is very tempting.
Was that out of Juneau or where was that out of?
That was in Moose Pass.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Nice.
Alaska Float Ratings is what it's called. And they're great. I cannot recommend them enough. Just, I mean, an incredible place to learn to fly. The instructors were great. Yeah, it was amazing.
You are also a creative. You design products and jewelry under the Cedar Sky Co name. Were you surprised that people wanted your creations?
Um, yes, a little bit. I, I've always been pretty creative.
Mhm.
Um, and there was kind of this time where I felt like I needed another outlet.
Mhm.
And my boyfriend had encouraged me to really just like dive into that and pursue it. And I did. And it was almost like a snowball effect because as soon as I started doing one thing, I was like, oh, I really want to try this and I really want to try that. And I remember having a conversation with my mom about it. And I was like, oh, but I already have like these two things that I'm working on. Like I already make seed bead earrings and homemade stamps. And at that time, I was really wanting to learn how to silversmith. And she was like, you can have multiple hobbies. Like you can have like as many as you want. And I was like, you're right. And honestly, that really helped me with just everything in life of like,
Mhm.
okay, but like, why not? Why can't I? And so I just kind of went for it. And silversmithing is like, it's just, it's really interesting to me. And I think that it's a really great creative outlet for me. And it's just been nice to see so much support from like friends and people in the community about just getting my art out there. And to be honest, like it's Cedar and Sky, I kind of feel like is just for me. Like I'm just doing it when I can, when I want to. And if it takes off, that's great. And if not, that's totally fine too. I love making art and like I'm not going to stop.
One of my methodologies as a coach is called the have it all method. And I've been asking women, what does it mean for you to have it all? And how do you try to have it all in your own way? When I'm coaching people in this space, I'm a big believer that to have it all, you can only have your all. You can't have your mom's all, your friend's all, someone you're inspired by is all. Like you and Shay and Bree all have a very different all when you look at what that means to you, even if there's overlap. And I think that a lot of times women in particular are told that we can't have it all. Like you have to choose. We're always told you have to choose. Are you going to work or are you going to be a mom? Are you going to support your partner or are you going to support your own career? Like we never get to have, let alone both versus all. And I just think it's a lie. I think it's a bunch of BS. And we may not be able to have it all at one moment in time because you can't have almost anything at one moment in time. But I think that there's so much more room for us to chase after what all looks like for us. And I know for me, it keeps evolving, right? Because we evolve and we see new inspiration and things like that. But I think that we're limiting ourselves by not asking, how can we have it all? Like, how do we stop compromising and choosing?
Right. Yeah. I think for me, I kind of resonate with that because uh, a couple of years ago, I kind of felt like a lot of the people that I was surrounding myself with, it felt like becoming a pilot had to be my whole identity.
Yeah.
And I had met other pilots where it felt like that became their whole identity. And that's so great. But for me, I had felt like this isn't it. Like I have so much more to me. And like I want that to be seen and recognized. And that's also why I kind of decided to just dive right into my creative side, which
Mhm.
just, like I said, snowballed of just, I can be both. I can become anything I want to be. I can, if I want to pursue both passions, I can do that. I don't have to
Mhm.
choose just one. Um, and I think that's really important because I think sometimes we do feel stuck and we feel like it's just this one thing. Like I have to go down that path. And it's like you can have so many different things going on. And I mean, I remember talking to my hairdresser, who's also my friend, Rosa. And she said the same thing. Like it's just, there's more to us. And I think it's so important to just explore that
Yeah.
and realize that like it's okay to do multiple things.
I can't imagine a life where we're not. Like
Yeah.
when I meet someone and they're like, I am a teacher and that is it. And I'm like, that's it? You don't have 80 million things you're trying not to do all at once? Like, I don't get like maybe I'm envious. Like that could be really freeing, but like I have a to-do list of everything, like places to go and things to try and recipes to cook and new business ideas. Like I'm like, is that I'm such a weirdo, aren't I? I think
No,
that's
I totally relate with that. It's so funny you say that because sometimes I have thought, I'm like, I almost feel envious of people who are like, this is what I'm doing for the rest of my life,
yeah.
and that's fine. And I feel great about it, and I'm coasting. And I mean, I do sometimes I like romanticize it, and I'm like, oh, that seems so nice because on my end, I'm like, but I have to do this and I have to do that. And like, I still want to travel here and I really want to live here and I want to work on this. And but that's also great. I mean, it's just a love for life
Yeah.
and exploring.
I do sometimes fantasize. I really love challenges also because I think it just causes you to take action on things you want to faster. Like I did the 30 by 30 challenge with friends, 30 countries before we were 30.
Oh,
I've been
cool.
trying to play 100 by 50, but we have gotten very off track recently. But I fantasize sometimes about forcing myself to go to middle America for a year and I'm not allowed to leave. Like I'm going to go to pick a town in Iowa. I'm going to be a librarian. And it's almost like it's starting to turn into like a weird Hallmark Christmas movie almost. But it's like, what would life be like if I knew I couldn't leave? I had to stay in this community. I'm like, I don't know if I would be like end up creating new businesses I didn't need to create, or if I'd be like running for mayor. Like, I don't know if I could just like chill.
Yeah.
But I sometimes fantasize about that challenge and like what kind of perspective on American life it would reveal, let alone myself. But there are moments when I'm like, if we took all these things away for 1 year, what would it be like?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's kind of this pull between do I want to live like a simple life, which
Mhm.
sounds great, like build a house, have a little hobby farm, um, like have
Yeah.
the same kind of day-to-day life, or do I want to do something more like extravagant and always be traveling and always be exploring? And I feel like I'm at the point in my life where like I feel pulls both ways,
Mhm.
100%. And like when I was obviously in my early 20s, it was like travel and do whatever I want and just go explore. And I don't know, I think there is a happy medium.
Mhm.
You can do both, like we were saying.
Yeah. Do you feel like Bend is a place that you're going to build out more roots, or is it a place for right now?
I think it's a place for right now. I'm from Vermont originally, and it's beautiful back there. I haven't been back in like I haven't lived there in 6 years,
Hmm.
maybe seven. Um, yeah, and my boyfriend is actually from there as well. So we had been doing long distance this past year, and he's here for this winter, and we're just kind of figuring things out. So um, I think eventually I'll go back to Vermont. I'm not
Yeah.
sure when, because like I said, I'm in a very transitional period of just like where I can find a job and
Hmm.
what's next. So yeah, we'll see.
I grew up on the East Coast, most like Philly, New York, but I consider Boston home. It's where I finished high school, went to college in Massachusetts. And there's something that I'm so thankful that I had a New England upbringing. There's something really nice about a open, liberal, expansive perspective with a lot of very traditional values grounded in it as well. Like it's hard to almost explain this mix, which sometimes there's bad parts of it, like everything. You know, you can only be puritanical views can go too far in many ways. But there's something that's I think just so nice about it. And I know I was just in New York a few weeks ago. I can feel my soul needs that fill up the same way it needs to be like refilled in Europe. As like there's things that I know I need to like recalibrate. And I've lived in California since 2012 now. And there's so many things here that are life is so easy and it's so comfortable, which sometimes makes me feel itchy. So we can tell that balance is an important thing for me. But there's something just for people who haven't been to Vermont or New England, I'm like, it's it is a place that we I think tell people to visit because I'm like, oh, go to Mongolia and see Tokyo. Like, but
Yeah.
I'm like, there's something about the groundedness. Like there's like every time I'm in New England, I'm like, and I don't know if it's from an origin perspective for me or just that's how the space is.
Yeah. No, I truly feel like Vermont is such a hidden gem.
Hmm.
And I hope it stays that way forever. Because I feel it's almost one of those things where I'm like, don't talk about it. Just because it's like, I mean, I'm sure you've seen this, but living out west, so many of these towns have blown up
Yeah.
and gotten really busy and kind of
Mhm.
overpopulated. And yeah, I mean, anytime I went back to see my boyfriend in Vermont, it was like, oh man, nothing has changed since I left. And I love that.
Yeah.
Everything is the same and it's so great and it's beautiful. And yeah, it's a great place. And I agree. I am so grateful that I grew up in New England. I think New
Hmm.
England's great. I honestly love the people from back there. And it is one of those things that it's like if you're from New England, like if you know, you know. And
Yeah.
it's hard to explain it to other people of
Hmm.
like what it's like and why it is so special. It's a
Hmm.
feeling.
Yeah. And I do think that Vermont and Alaska have so many parallels where people are so proud to be there and love being there, but they also really encourage everyone to leave. Like, go explore, come back.
Yeah.
And not every place is like that. Like, I know people from Massachusetts who have never left this, who have never lived anywhere else. And some have never gone like beyond New York and I'm like, that I don't understand. But it's almost like when you are so isolated, it's like setting out the community as missionaries, like, go tell us what's out there, come back.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense.
Hmm.
Yeah, I do feel like Alaska's pretty similar. I have family that lives in Haines, which
Hmm.
is Southeast Alaska, and I
Yeah.
used to live there as a kayak guide. And yeah, I mean, there's so many people that go there, go somewhere else, and then end up returning right back. I
Yeah.
know my cousin had gone out and she lived in Pennsylvania for a little bit with her now
Hmm.
husband. But then she went back to Alaska and like she loves it.
Hmm.
It's just her place.
When you hear the words powerful and ladies, what do those words mean to you? And do their definitions change when they're next to each other?
I think to me, being a powerful lady means being you, regardless of what everyone else is thinking or, pressuring you to be. Um, and it also just means being supportive of other women. I think lifting women up is so important. And I think you actually had maybe touched on it a little bit, but so I went out to get we went to this like wine and oysters bar last night with some girlfriends, and how like being a powerful lady can mean so many different things and can
Yeah.
be so many different things. And I thought it was so cool because I was sitting at a table with three other girlfriends, and they're I think of them all as very powerful ladies, and they're all incredible in their own ways. It's like, Jess is a new mom and she's doing an incredible job and she's absolutely killing it. And then Jody is just like a badass in the outdoors. Like she gets after it. And I really
Mhm.
admire that. And then obviously Bree was there, and she, is a two-time New York Times bestselling author. And like we all have our own things. And I just think that's so cool to be
Mhm.
a part of, and also just be surrounded by other women that are doing their thing and also being supportive of each other in that. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I just thought that was cool.
No, I think it is. It's so true. Like, I want women to know that whatever you're up to is powerful.
Yeah.
You just are, like, the fact that you're existing is powerful. Like, there's so many choices we have to make every day for ourselves, for other people, to just allow ourselves to be heard or have our light shine. Like, just to show up is an act of resistance and power. And you don't have to be. You can be powerful as a being. There doesn't have to be a powerful doing attached to it.
Yes. Yeah. And it kind of goes back into the comparing of like, oh, but I'm not doing what she's doing. And it's like,
Yeah.
but you are doing your thing. And that it's like, I couldn't do that. And like, you're
Yeah.
doing it. And so, everyone has their own thing. And that's what's so
Mhm.
incredible.
Our
So,
own thing and also our own timeline. Like, I think we forget that everyone has different seasons, and you traveled when you were 23, 24. Someone else is traveling at 33, 34. Someone else is traveling at 63, 64. And like, it's the goal of being the same. That's being the same is not the goal.
no, and no one would want to be.
No, it'd be so boring. It'd be so boring. We need everyone to be in their gifts and in their space and in their own timeline, because one, it just gives us freedom to be ourselves, but it also allows us to be contributions to each other and to carry different weight at different times. Or, there's this whole, again, going back to like the flow, but for me, it's often like a braiding, like we're braiding our lives together. We're braiding who we are as humans together. And if it was all equal and consistent and the same, it would feel really weird. But
Yeah. And I mean, that's why it's so beautiful, is
yeah,
because everyone has their own path, and it's so different. And that's what's so great. And there's just beauty in that. And it's great that you can all come together and share it together. So,
yes, I agree. Here, here.
yes.
I'm so glad that you made sure we talked about that, because yeah, it's so important.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, after I left, I was like, oh, it's so cool that we're
Hmm.
all just incredible and badass in our own ways, and are all hanging out, talking about everything that's going on differently in our lives, but yet we connect. And yeah, it's just beautiful.
It is. I think as well, what's really interesting about you in particular is that you have this what occurs to me is like an expansive flow capability, or like when things come up, when they're exciting, like we'll follow where they go. Being in that flow state and open to new possibilities and seeing what comes seems in contradiction to the precision and execution people want from a pilot. So how do you balance your ability to jump into those two spaces?
So being able to go with the flow, but also, I mean, I feel like it kind of depends on what it is.
Yeah.
When there's things that come up, like driving to Alaska by myself, it was like, yeah, I can make this work. This works with my life right now. Why not? I'm gonna go
Yeah.
for it. And that is important for me. Like I
Yeah.
love those adventures. But then there's also the times where it's like I know that I have to get X, Y, and Z done, and I'm going to just put my head down and get it done. And that's
Hmm.
like getting my commercial done. Um, yeah, just knowing when those times are appropriate for me and when they work for me, and then knowing when
Yeah.
I need to really get my head in the game and get things
Hmm.
done.
Which I really do think that most powerful ladies can tap into that, right? Like part of this whole podcast and this entire company is that the examples we're given of what powerful means have been so limited and so extreme. Like you have to be Oprah, you have to be Taylor Swift, you have to be Beyonce, you have to be Amal Clooney. Like unless you are dedicating your life to human rights activism, like we're failing. And again, it's like such bullshit. Like that's not that's not the reality. It's like all these women that I've had the pleasure to meet and know and talk to on here were such a kaleidoscope of interesting thoughts and feelings and hobbies and capabilities. And when we talk about, you know, patriarchy is such a conversation in the past 5, 10 years. And I think the simplicity, the biggest crime that's been committed against women may be the oversimplification of who we are and what we look like and the uniformity that we've been described as. And that's why it's so important to me to have guests like yourself on here who are showing like it's totally normal and amazing to be able to be super focused and diligent and, you know, go through the processes that need to happen to be safe and to make this engineering marvel happen. And at the same time, like you can be doing all of that while being enchanted with the world below you. And you can be as free as you are flying anytime you want to be. And what I think is so impressive, having just met you today, is that like it feels so true to you to just kind of navigate as things come. And what else do you want in a pilot? Like what else like that's like I don't want somebody who's not going to be aware and paying attention. I don't want somebody who is like, no, we must land here, and you're like, maybe we're not supposed to.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I appreciate hearing that. I definitely like this last 2 years, I guess, I've really been working on not comparing, not
Yeah.
comparing my path to others. And it's so hard sometimes. I mean,
Yeah.
just seeing where other women are in like their aviation career and being like,
Yeah.
oh man, like if I had done this, maybe I could have been there. Or with social media, it's like, it's so hard sometimes, but I really kind of let go of that idea that like I need to compare myself to somebody else. Instead, it was more, this is my journey, and whatever that looks like is okay. And that's just how it's supposed to be, and that's okay. I almost 2 years ago got out of a very toxic relationship, and it really like it threw me for a loop. I needed to take some serious time to get back to myself and be a stronger version of myself. And so I wasn't flying very much. And a lot of people talk about like mental health with pilots, and it's so important to know when your head is there and when it's not. And so I really took some time off to get back to myself, worked on some other things. That's really when I started to create and use that as like an outlet. And then I was able to get back into flying and like re-spark my love for it and come back stronger and be able to just hit the ground running and be like, cool, I'm going to go explore this. Maybe I want to be a seaplane pilot. And now I feel ready to get my commercial done and to just like go for it. And yeah, I just think it's so important to be able to look at your own journey and not compare it to others, to really just realize that maybe this is how it's supposed to be and that's okay. And like, as long as you're still going, that's all that matters. Like, you'll get there eventually.
I love that. So we have a few rapid fire questions to give you as we're wrapping up today. The first is, where do you put yourself on the powerful ladies scale? If 0 is average everyday human and 10 is the most powerful lady you can imagine, where would you rank yourself today and on an average day?
Ooh. Today, I would say like a 7. I feel pretty good about getting half of my commercial check ride done and just, I don't know, I'm doing it.
Yeah.
On an average day, like a 4, maybe a 5. It's so funny that you say this because last night I was with a couple of girlfriends and we were talking about how we know so many incredible women and how we're like, what can't she do? But then if you are one of those incredible women, you're like, I'm not doing enough, or like you have anxiety about it. And it's like, why do we like, I don't know, make ourselves smaller than we are?
You're up to so many things. What is something that you want, you're trying to manifest, you need more of? This is a connected, powerful community. So what do you want to ask for?
Ooh. Um, like just in general, what I want to see more of. I think I want to see more of women supporting women and lifting each other up. I think just women supporting women is so important.
How are you maintaining your mental health with everything that's going on in the world and balancing everything that you're also up to yourself?
Trying to have a healthy amount of time to myself is very important. Being able to get outside, get some exercise, spending time with my dog, super important, as well as just spending time with the people that I love and friends that are supportive and friends that can listen and just having a good community.
For everybody who wants to now find you, follow you, support you, hire you for fun plane rides, maybe be taught by you someday, buy your jewelry, just be like, they're just a yes to everything that you are. Where are all the places they can find, follow, and support you?
Yeah, I think the main place would just be Instagram. I have my personal account and then I also have Cedar and Sky on there, and that's a good place to reach out to me or just to follow along.
And we'll have all those listed in our show notes so everyone can go to thepowerfulladies.com and find them.
Awesome.
I am so glad that Shay connected us. I know that if she recommends somebody, they're going to be great people. And, I think most importantly, like, are you going to Mountain Film this year?
Ooh, I don't know. I went last year and it was a blast. So I hope so.
Yeah. Well, we're sponsoring it again, so I would love to see you there. We're always playing the game of how big can our crew get? And then we're also going to be doing a retreat 2 days after for, I think there's so much power in seeing those films and that community and that weekend that I want to give women in particular a space to kind of decide how we're going to integrate what we just learned and take action on it and just feel like leave with that power and that momentum and take it with us versus have it just hang out until your ride. So hopefully I get to see you there. And if not, I hope, maybe cross paths between here and Bend and wherever else we might be.
Yeah, that would be incredible. You'll have to send me the information for the retreat.
I will. Well, thank you so much for being a yes to me and Powerful Ladies and all the work that you're doing. I sleep better at night knowing that there are women like you chasing all your dreams just like I am, and that we're kind of doing our magic in our part of the world. So thank you for everything you're up to and the light that you are for other people.
Thank you. And thank you for having me on the show.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and share it with a friend. Head to thepowerfulladies.com where you can find all the links to connect with Alice and Cedar Sky Co, as well as learn more about Powerful Ladies. Come hang out with us on Instagram at Powerful Ladies, and you can find me and all my socials at caraduffy.com. I'll be back next week with a brand new episode. Until then, I hope you're taking on being powerful in your life. Go be awesome and up to something you love.